What is banking all about? It's about him, her, them. It's about managing today's challenges and planning for tomorrow's opportunities. It's having someone there when you need them, a trusted resource, a partner, a bank that knows you, not as a number or an account, but as a friend. Far from ordinary, right at home. That's Merchants Bank.
I'm Joyce Woodworth. Welcome to the Spirit of the Heartland. Today we're visiting the Vin Farm near Arcadia, Wisconsin. This beautiful spot is home to two unusual breeds of sheep. And the woman who tends to them is an artist who uses the sheep's wool to weave into beautiful wall hangings. And today she has offered to take us through the steps of her interesting creations. Dolores and Dave Vin's sheep farm is located at the end of a valley amongst the rolling hills of Wisconsin's river valleys. Their land is situated between Arcadia and Ettrick, Wisconsin. Here, their 170 spotted Jacob and Navajo churro sheep happily graze to their heart's content. Dolores spends 3 hours a day tending the animals, feeding, and relating with them. Over the 11 years of tending them, Dolores has developed a real fondness for the animals. Several of them have even become special pets, and Dolores has given them names, such as Top Hat, who readily comes to her side for a special treat. At the top of one of the rolling hills on their property, the Vins have built a charming log home which contains the logs from an original pioneer house from the 19th century. The pastoral setting is an ideal spot to raise their unusual animals, and their log home, which also houses Dolores's weaving studio and wall hanging studio, is the perfect building for the lifestyle she has chosen. We're sitting now with Dolores Vin on her beautiful porch on her authentic log cabin. It is so pretty out here, Dolores.
Thank you.
And I would like to first start talking about your sheep themselves. Now you have two breeds, totally different. Let's talk about the sheep from the beginning. What kinds are they, and tell me a little bit about them.
Okay, we have the Jacob breed of sheep, and they're a spotted sheep. They're white with black spots. And they originally came from Syria, and they're about 3,000 years old. They can be traced back. And they were brought to this area mainly from Britain, where they were used as park sheep on the estates because of their horns and their unusual appearance. And then when they came here, they're used in zoos, etc. They have a nice wool that can be worn next to the skin. The second breed of sheep we have are the Navajo churro sheep, and they were brought in the 16th century to this continent, and then through trade and they were brought up to the Navajo Indian area, and that's where they made their beautiful blankets from them. They are a dual-coated breed. They have a hair coat and a wool coat, and so that wool is very lustrous and strong for rugs.
Do both breeds have a certain number of horns on their head? It seems like they have more than 2 horns, and they kind of seem to go off in all different directions. Is that unusual, or?
Yes, it's unusual for sheep. They have to have a certain gene, and these breeds have that gene. So the ewes and the rams are both horned. They can have 2, 4, or even 6 horns. So.
Now, I noticed you have both of your sheep together. Do they get along quite well? I mean, and can they interbreed or not? Well,
they could interbreed. We don't want them to, and we try to prevent that as much as possible by having separate pens, and during breeding season we'll separate the 2 breeds.
Okay. How unusual are these sheep to the United States?
They're very rare breeds because of the history, like of the Navajo churro, where during the 1860s, where the government was trying to subdue the Indians, so they decimated the Indian and the sheep population. And just a few of these, the Navajo sheep were found in the canyons out west. So they're very rare, but they were actually the first domestic sheep in the continent because they were brought over 500 years ago. So in that way, they're very unique, you know. They're a small, both of these breeds are a small breed, and they grow very slowly to get any meat from them, for maybe a year until you get up to the weight for market. So for that reason, they're not commercially viable, and that's why they've fallen by the wayside. So part of what we are doing are conserving these breeds, you know, for prosperity.
Now, I noticed that you have a llama up there on the hill. What in the world do you use him for?
The llama is there to protect the sheep. He keeps stray dogs and coyotes away from them. It's his size and his call and his smell that will keep the predators away.
Now, I never heard of that before. Do other sheep herders use llamas for protection?
Yes, they do. And they work. We've never lost a sheep due to predators in the 11 years we've had the sheep.
Now, what got you interested in these 2 distinct kinds of breeds?
I think I like the unusualness of the sheep. Their horns, you know, the 4 horns are interesting. They're a smaller sheep. I can use their wool for weaving or doing my wall hangings, and I like that.
Now, Dolores, I am really interested. Were you an artist before you got the sheep, or did the sheep come and then you became an artist and decided to do something with the sheep's wool?
I think I've always been interested in art, and I have woven before I had the sheep. But since I have these 2 breeds of sheep, I've really been interested in finding ways to use their wool for what I make.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the wool. I mean, we have fabulous wool right in front of us. Is this from your sheep?
Yes, this is from Navajo churro sheep. And the Navajo churros can be any color from white to black. And this is a brown Navajo. And this is how we've sheared it, and then this is how it comes off the sheep. And you can see the hair coat, and then down underneath is the wool coat. And that's what the hair gives the wool a lot of strength.
Is this bag of wool just from one sheep?
Yes.
Okay.
And they'll have good 5 pounds of wool on the Navajo. The Jacob
5 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Jacob have about 3 pounds of wool.
You don't shear it yourself, do you?
No, we hire a shearer.
Okay.
And once he gets done with a fleece, we flip it up onto a shearing table, which is a table with holes in it so that the dirt can fall through. So we have the fleece laid out, and we take all the manure tags and the bad wool, and we throw that out. So the good wool I'll put into these bags. I'll name them so I know what sheep they come from, so I know how their wool is when I use it. And then the next process would be I would wash the wool. I usually use my washer where I fill it with hot water, as hot as I can get it, and I add some ammonia and some Dawn dishwashing detergent, and I soak the wool in there for 45 minutes, and then I spin it out. I don't want to agitate it because that will felt the wool. And then I added some more soap again in hot water, and then I I do that twice, and then I rinse it twice the same way. And then I'll put it outside on a drying rack until it dries.
Now you do absolutely every single step from this to your final wall hanging, right?
Yes.
Every step. And you're going to show us some of these steps.
Yes.
So now we know how to wash it, and from there, what's the next step?
Then I will dye the wool, and then I pick it and card it, and then it's made into bats that I can actually use that wool from.
Would you like to demonstrate some of those processes for us?
Sure will.
Okay, well, let's take your bag of wool and go.
Okay.
Now, Dolores has explained to us about the wool once it comes off of the sheep, and then it's sheared, and she washes it in her wash machine, and then she brings it down here, and this is the next step. Right now, this has been washed in your wash machine.
Yes, this has been.
Okay, and what do you do after it's cleaned? And
Well, then I will dye it into the different colors I would like it to be. And I usually do that outside because of the odor.
And is this from your Jacob or your Navajo?
This is from the Navajo churro. And you
Okay.
can see the hair in the churro.
It's really long.
Yes, it can grow up to 11 inches in 1 year.
Wow. Okay, and so do you use a special dye for dyeing your wool?
No, I use a jacquard dye, and it's an acid dye. And I'll put it into boiling water with the dye in the water, and I'll let it boil for 30 minutes. Then after 30 minutes, I take it off the heat and let it sit until it's cool. And then I rinse the wool until the water runs clear.
Now these are some of your wall hangings, but looks like it was done on a loom.
Yes, it was done on the loom, and I use my floor loom. And I use the Navajo techniques, although.
Dolores, now here's a fine example of some of your colors that you've gotten out from dyeing the yarn. And they're such rich colors, and they're so even. Is that unusual, or do you usually get a real uniform dye like that?
Okay, I try to get uniform dye. I always dye gray wool, and that will give you more of a heather and richer color. The brown wool I'll leave natural because it's such a beautiful color and unusual that I leave the brown natural. I don't dye that.
Okay. Now, is this wool all from your Navajo sheep?
Yes, this is all from my Navajo.
Okay.
I've had the wool machine spun, although, and then I wove from it.
Okay. So not only do you do the wall hangings from your looms, but you also do a very different process with your wool as well, which I'm hoping you're going to show us now.
Yes.
Okay. So from the dyeing now, we go into the next step, which is what?
Which would be picking and then carding the wool and to get it ready to use.
Okay. Well, let's go into your studio and see that. We're in Dolores' studio now, and I see some absolutely beautiful colors here, some rich dyed colors. Now, is this the step after you dye the wool?
No, it isn't. The next thing we'll do is pick the wool to separate the fibers. So it's sort of stuck together.
Yeah,
and
it's still all matty. Wow.
Yep. Okay, and this is a homemade picker, and it's got barbs on it.
Oh, my.
It's very dangerous. So I'm just separating the fibers, and then it will look like that.
Oh, so it's a lot fluffier.
And I go over to the drum carder, and I'm going to... And what this carder does is make all the fibers go the same direction. And so when I get enough on the drum, I just take it off by going like that. I'll have my bat.
Dolores is now ready to create one of her unique wall hangings, which she shows and sells at various art shows around the area. Once she has dyed and carded the wool into different battings, she uses a felting tool to mesh the fibers of wool together. She begins with an undyed gray batting as the base, and on top of that she pokes the colored wool through into different patterns and designs.
And the tool just allows me to sort of paint with the wool.
Today she is creating sunflowers. Now this is the piece that Dolores created for us here today, And it's a beautiful piece. I'd love to hang that right on the wall. But it looks like you even developed it a little further with
Yes.
this piece here.
Yes, this is what I am, the actual painting is finished, and now I have to wet felt this so that the fibers mesh together and it becomes a piece of fabric.
Okay, now this is your finished piece.
This piece started out a third bigger than it is now, and as I use water and soap and agitation, the fibers, the wool fibers will shrink and they'll stay together. And that's what I'm going to do, the wet felting. And I have a bamboo curtain that I use, and then I put down a piece of mesh, and I put that on both sides, and then I will put water, soapy water on this, hot soapy water, and then I'm going to roll it up.
Oh, you really soak it, don't you?
Yes.
Like almost a whole shampoo bottle full.
And then I'm going to agitate it. And the agitation is what felts the wool. Okay. And I'll do this for a half hour, maybe an hour, it depends. And
oh my.
it's already sort of felting, so then I'll just keep rolling it until I can't pull it apart.
Mm-hmm. And then it'll dry like that, nice and flat.
Yes, yes, and you can tell it's much thinner. And
yes. Uh-huh. And you'll have a wonderful wall hanging afterwards.
correct.
And then what do? You just kind of clip it on to some interesting
Well, what I
looking
do
end pieces?
is I have a backing, a Velcro backing,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have the iron rods that Dave, my husband, makes, and then we put those in there, in the sleeve.
Absolutely beautiful. We're now in Dolores' spinning and weaving room, and we see other products that she makes besides her wall hangings. There's Christmas stockings, and there's hats and purses. She's got a variety of wonderful pieces, including this gorgeous shawl. And she's got blankets, many, many things here. And she's going to show us how she actually takes her own wool and she spins it into the yarn that she makes these fabrics with, and how she then weaves it. Dolores, these spinning wheels have always really intrigued me. Can you describe now what exactly you're doing? It looks like you've got the yarn from your sheep.
I have the wool bats that I use the drum carder to make, and I'm making spinning yarn from them. And what I'm doing is twisting the fiber into a cord that will become yarn. And this is the bobbin that the yarn is spun onto. And then from here I will wash this. I usually will knit my hats from this.
Okay, how do you ever wash it after it's on the bobbin?
I will put it onto a nitty knotty.
Mm-hmm. A nitty natty. What is that?
I have one right here. And when I want to unwind my wool, so this makes it into 1 yard. And then when it's all on, I can wash it. I have to tie it off, and then it's ready to wash. And I can show you what it looks like.
Okay.
It would be like that.
Oh, and then is this how you wash it?
Yes.
Do you tie it up in different pieces and stick it in a bag or something and stick it in the wash machine?
Well, I just soak it in water, actually.
Oh, okay.
In hot soapy water, and then rinse it.
Mm-hmm. Now, at this point, is the lanolin smell out of it?
Should be.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
I usually put a wool moth inhibitor, which is just like a wool wash with lavender in it or eucalyptus.
Okay. And then from here, you'll hand knit this, right?
Yes.
But if you had enough of it, you could use this actually on your loom, right?
Good, yes.
Okay. Let's see what happens on your loom.
Okay.
Okay, now we've seen how Dolores makes her beautiful wall hangings, but not only does she do that, but after she spins her own yarn, she makes it into gorgeous shawls and sweaters and hats and all the things that we saw on her table over there. And you do that in a very different way from your wall hangings. You don't use your felting pin anymore. You use
A loom.
a loom. And let's describe the loom for the camera and tell them about what you do with your loom.
Okay. The loom consists of little heddles and harnesses and then the beater bar, and there are foot pedals that control what harnesses that I'll use. And when I press on a foot pedal, and I use the boat shuttle, which is full of yarn, and that's a shot. And I'm going to beat the yarn down. And I'm making a lace, so this is going to be very airy. And this is unwashed yarn. So when I wash it, it will full up and become much more dense like the white shawl.
How do you create a pattern with the loom?
It depends on where I place my strings yarn through what heddles, and then what harnesses I lift up, and that can change the pattern if I want it to.
This brown yarn that you have on the loom right now, are you going to be making another shawl with this?
Okay, I'm making a shawl just like this white one, but I'm using my dark Jacob wool.
Oh, this is from the Jacob sheep.
Yes.
Okay.
And this white one is also, because they're spotted, they come in black and white.
Mm-hmm. So this is natural, this hasn't been dyed?
Correct.
Oh, how were you able to just pick out the brown from the sheep?
When you have the fleece, you just take just the brown,
Mm-hmm.
and then take out the white, and you have left gray. So actually I get 3 colors from my Jacob: the black, the white, and the gray.
Dolores, how long would it take for you to make something like this, like your beautiful shawl?
Oh, I think it probably took about 20 hours to complete.
Well, Dolores, which of these artworks did you start with first? Your looming, or your weaving, or your felting?
I started with my weaving. I wove on the loom before I got the sheep. And then after we acquired the sheep, I had to do something else with all that wool. So I started spinning and felting.
Okay, and which do you enjoy the most?
I think I enjoy the felting because it's so creative.
Now, Dolores, these are some beautiful, beautiful pieces. Kind of describe to us which are the pieces that you would have made on your loom and which are the pieces that you would make downstairs in your felting area.
Okay, the woven pieces that I do on the loom are the handbags,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a log cabin type design on this one, and this is a twill pattern. I've made this blanket on the loom, and then this shawl. And I've also, this is some Jacob yarn that's been spun, and the Jacob, because it's a spotted breed of sheep, when you take it right off the sheep and wash it and then spin it from the fleece, you'll get this modeling look to it.
Oh, it's beautiful. And this is not dyed a bit then, right?
No, that's the natural look of the wool.
It's gorgeous.
And this hat also. And then these are felted, and this is a stocking. It's wet felted.
Mm-hmm.
And the purses are also, and the hat. And this hat is made with the Jacob wool because it needs to be worn next to the skin, and that's a softer wool.
Oh, I love the little tam as well. This is so cute. And this you've done on your weaving machine as well?
Well, that's been knit.
Oh, it's been knit, hand knit?
Yes, it's been hand spun fiber and then hand knit.
Oh, so you actually do your hand knitting as well?
Yes.
You really are multifaceted. And what about these? These are so cute. And are these perhaps corsages?
Yes, they are.
Oh, it looks just great. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I could see you really decorating a sweater or a jacket with one
Yes.
of these things. And how much does something like this sell for?
Those are $15.
Oh, they're really cute. Great. Yeah. Wow. Tell me about yourself. Have you been always so creative in creating all these interesting things with yarn?
I think I like fiber,
Uh-huh.
so that's why I like to raise the sheep and use their product. And the more I do it, the more things I think of doing.
Wow. Now, Dolores, you mentioned before that if anybody has any interest in buying yarn from you or buying the actual wool from you, how do they contact you exactly?
Well, they could call me or they can email me.
Okay. Do you want to give us your email address?
It's davevind@hotmail.com.
Okay. And what about your phone number?
That's 608-525-2103.
Okay. Now, I want to thank you so much for sharing your sheep stories with us and showing us how you create from the sheep's wool these beautiful, beautiful products and your wall hangings.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thanks. And thanks for joining me today. Please join me again next week. Till then, enjoy the spirit of the Heartland.